Interest of fairness, I'm picking up how Fox is covering this, and just so you know, that coon ass Sheriff Clarke is giving his commentary on this thing, and his basic point is the protesters are always wrong, the police are always right, and there's no middle ground. After he gets his dumb ass off, there's a reporter who was on the scene last night, and he's going to give much more balanced coverage, I'll say.
Candidates are saying, because if it weren't Donald Trump and it were Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio who was attracting 10, 15, 20,000s at rallies, the same thing would be happening. They're going after the person they see that's the biggest threat. I don't believe in our country that we should have our First Amendment. When I say our, I'm talking about anybody who wants to participate in this process. We should have it shut down just to keep the peace. No, the goons need to back off, and they need to be silenced, not the people who are on the side of law and order. All right.
Right, and there he goes, the people on the side of law and order. How does he come to the conclusion that the protesters aren't also on the side of law and order? He is full of shit. Like I said, if it has anything to do with the police, they're never wrong, and anybody on the other side is always right. But you notice he hasn't said a goddamn word about the McDonald case in Chicago. And for those of you who don't know it, Clarke is sheriff in Milwaukee County, which is approximately a 3.5-hour drive from Chicago. And they share common TV channel. So if he didn't know what was going on in Chicago and all the bullshit that the cops down there are doing, you know, if he says that, he's lying. Anyway, I guess you can pretty much tell I'm not a Sheriff Clarke fan.
Sure, thank you very, very much for taking the time. Crazy day. The day after, everyone hopes there can be calm returning night after what got to be a pretty violent and pretty nasty and ultimately pretty much canceled event, a Donald Trump event in Chicago. 5 were arrested there, but it got nasty, it got violent, and stuck in the middle of it all was our own Jeff Locke, who calmly covered it all. Jeff joining us on the phone right now. Jeff, it just sort of disintegrated as you were there, didn't it?
Well, it did, although with due respect to the sheriff, I can tell you that this crowd was a very diverse crowd. You know, it was a bunch of goons and thugs. There may be some of that element in it, but I can tell you that this was a crowd of young and old, black and white, and young people. One 80-year-old woman who said she lived through the Second World War, and Benito Mussolini, and that's how this started. I mean, these are people very passionate. I even talked to a Republican voter in the protest crowd who said, I don't think this is my party, and I want to speak out against it. So. Okay,
and that counters stupid-ass, coon-ass Sheriff Clarke's opinion that anybody that was out there protesting was pretty much a goon.
You know, this was a big crowd, and it was a diverse crowd.
You know, Jeff, you always wonder who threw the first blows. I mean, it obviously comes to that. I know it was nasty exchanges. I caught them in your coverage. But how did it go? How did it go?
Well, you know, it was largely a nonviolent protest. I mean, there were a lot of people there from representing a lot of different, as I said, factions. But, you know, I at one point saw a Donald Trump guy, a supporter with a sign, walk through outside amongst all the protesters, and no one bothered him. You know, they let him do his thing. Some people stopped to talk with him, but it largely was not that thing. But what happened was on the inside, when everybody realized that the rally would be canceled, and, you know, in fairness, we should have seen this coming, because we've had protesters before, but it's been a small enough group inside that they've been able to eject them and then go on with the rally.
Exactly.
Well, this time there were so many protesters inside that it was impossible to bring them all out. And so I think that's why they eventually decided to just call a halt to it.
Yeah, it was at that point when they canceled it that all hell broke loose. I'm going to go to some of your exchanges with some of the folks last night once they got word of that. This is from last night.
You want to remove people, fighting cause commotion, that's exactly what Trump protesters.
Now you're going to notice it's basically white guys that are going back and forth with each other in some of these exchanges. So I wonder if he's going to call the white guys thugs.
Free speech. This is not free speech. No, they're suppressing.
One at a time. One at a time.
They're suppressing free speech. They talk about wanting free speech. They're suppressing free speech right now.
I'm here because I'm proud to be a Chicagoan, because Chicago does not like Donald Trump and his ideas, and I'm very proud to be a Chicagoan today. You can pan the camera around and see how many people are opposed to Donald Trump in the city of Chicago. I'm very proud to be a Chicagoan today.
Notice the black guy is talking calmly to the white guy that basically, maybe he's a Trump supporter, maybe he's not, but he's talking about free speech. That interchange is fine. You get the wild white guy that's talking about he's proud to be a Chicagoan that's jumping up and down and going crazy. So, there's so many false narratives that they would have you believe that basically it's pretty much all minorities that are going crazy against Trump, and and all the white people are the ones that are calm and rational, and that's just not the case.
Thank you. And I want to listen to
UIC student. That's college today.
I'm a UIC alumni. Even worse.
Well, at least those guys didn't come to blows. But Jeff, I mean, you mentioned something interesting about everything hit the fan sort of when they had to cancel the event. The Trump folks were told, besides this Ohio event that's planned, they are adding a couple, we're told, in the Cincinnati area, that they don't want to be deterred from this. But obviously they're taking a little bit of risk there if it gets out of hand, right?
Well, push is really starting to come to shove on this, and this is, you can argue this a couple of different ways, but, everybody's exercising First Amendment rights here. And
exactly.
There's, your fist in my nose, and the First Amendment, end and stop, end and begin. It could become a trend, and again, this was the first time there have been protesters in large enough numbers. It's usually gone the other way. They've been ejected out of these places, but now, last night at least, there were enough protesters on the inside that made the rally, I suspect, impossible, and that's why they canceled.
All right, thank you, my friend, very, very much.
Yeah, see, this is the first one, and I don't see how it was, but this is the first one that all the various factions had easy access to. Just like Trump is getting ready to have a rally this morning, you can see the image at the airport. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to get, a whole bunch of protesters out to the airport, and especially this time of morning. So he's not going to have any problem here. My interest is going to be tonight in Cleveland, and I don't know exactly where in Cleveland it is. It could be called Cleveland, but basically really on the outskirts of Cleveland that would make it more difficult to attend. So we will see.